missed one train in Israel and ended up living in Scotland with a family and doing something completely different than what I had planned for my life. Hi everybody, I've dressed up for this video because actually I'm feeling absolutely shattered. I've had one of the worst nights. There's been something really stressful in my life and I was kind of keeping it together until yesterday. It just got to me and it whacked me. It was just up from 3 o'clock, crying half the time until now, and it was just horrible, and I don't really know how it's going to get solved because it's one of those things that, well, I really don't want to talk about it, and I just kind of hoping for a miracle here. So I put a lot of makeup to make up for, well, you know, and I want to say this. The reason I'm telling you all this is because I want to be truthful. I know that everything is always perfect on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all that, but you know what? That's not life. This is life. This is the beauty when you're like smacked from a horrible night, and this is kind of how you look. Before we start, I have a question for you. I would like you to help me choose a recipe for the next video. As you can see, I'm trialing things from here and it's gonna come up at some point. It's kind of already ready, but I'm trying to think about how exactly I want to do it this time with the launch, and I want to give you a free recipe. So choice number 1, choice number 2. Okay, comment below which one you want me to make in the next video. Right, so I actually really wanted to make this video especially today because I wanted to say something that is inspiring, and I think that if I'm going to share something about my personal life, because like who cares, right? But if I'm going to do it, I might as well tell you something that you can take with you, and this is maybe the single most inspiring thing. It's quite crazy that I missed a train and I ended up here. This is 15 years ago roughly, and it happened in Tel Aviv, and I had my life planned out, like really planned out. I was about to do my final year of singing. I was learning opera singing and things weren't going as well, and I had it all planned out that I was going to go study at a German school and do a master's there, and in order to be good at that I would be taking a second bachelor's German just like for 1 year just to get some classes. I already had a few courses so I could speak it, but you know, it's not the same. And that was the plan, and then I would audition and I would get into a school, and that was how it was going to be. And I was very certain of that. I had it all planned out, and I was doing this 5-day schooling with this teacher, and it was the final day, and I was about to catch the train to go home. I got to the station and I'd missed my train. And I thought, okay, right, I have some time, and there was a mall right next to it, so I just went there. And suddenly I see this group of girls that were from the class above me at school, and I said, oh, hi, how are you? Oh, I see you have another friend there. And turns out she wasn't a friend. She was one of the biggest opera teachers in Europe at the time from Berlin, and they had just taken a class with her because she was teaching in a different kind of setting, and she said, oh, I have a spot tomorrow, come. And from the day I had started studying until that day, I had never had a lesson like that. It was, I didn't even know I had a voice that could sound like that. It was absolutely mind-blowing, and I said, wow, this is the teacher I need to be studying with. This is the person who's going to teach me voice. Like, this is an opera star. This is somebody who's doing it on the stage right now. Whatever she said, and I had a pianist with me because I brought a friend, and we're sitting out there, and I'm crying like, apparently I cry. I'm crying, and I'm asking, you know, my pianist friend, like, was it real? What I just experienced? Did you hear that? Like, is that really what it was? And she's like, yes, it was. And I'm like, wow, okay, I guess I'm doing this. So I called the university and I canceled. And I started to, I had a lot of time because the final year I had more time on my hands. I started to look for a job. I found a job at a bookstore right next to home, so I could start saving up because I knew I was going to go to Berlin and I was going to study privately with this teacher. And then something else happened. So while I was there, and I had it in my head that this is it, like this is life. I am going to be a singer, period, end of discussion. I'm going to be a musician. This is what I want. Like, I had nothing else in my head, and the way I was going to do it is the traditional way, and that was it. But that store had a lot of books, and I was very curious, and I started reading the fiction section, and I started reading the non-fiction section. I even read some of the medical section because it had like explanations about the vocal cords, and I thought it was really, really interesting. I started reading the business section. And the first book that I actually read, not as cliche, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, okay? It was good for beginners. I did not know anything. And I thought, wow, this is like mind-blowing stuff. This whole like financial thing. And until then I thought it was the most boring thing on earth. And suddenly it's like, wow. And so I end up not going to Berlin because when I came back to this teacher, what clicked for 1 hour did not click for another week. And I said, well, okay, I have to change my plans. And so at the end of the year, I end up going to New York to a different teacher from the same method, but with a different approach. And while I'm there just for a few months to get as much as I can, I get one of those alerts of the kind of follow me thing on your, your email. Rich Dad, Poor Dad assembly tonight at somewhere like this. I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything tonight. Let's go. Next to me in the chair is an economist from my country, young woman, and she's fascinating. I'm like, hey, let's go to dinner. And she tells me, look, if you're interested in this, you should study microeconomics and macroeconomics. Now I'm writing this down because I don't know what it is, right? It's like, what? It's like, okay, fine. There's Open University in my country. There's also one in this country. I'm in Scotland. There's the UK Open University, kind of same model. You study, and I'm like, well, let's just take some courses there. Do microeconomics and macroeconomics. And I scored 100% on both tests. And I loved it. I had one of these teachers who just makes you love it. Okay, it's really like, this is something I've learned in life. It's not the subject, it's the teacher. I used to think I hate history. And then I saw this history lecturer who's now really famous, and there's movies about him in Hollywood and all that. Yuval Noah Harari, he like talks about Homo sapiens, and I never thought I cared about it, but wow, great teacher. It's amazing to watch, and she was like that. And suddenly I started thinking that, hey, maybe one day I should do an MBA. And I know it's crazy, like, who would ever accept an opera singer to an MBA program? Oxford. So it was really crazy. That was absolutely insane. So I'm actually in Berlin when this is happening, and I've turned 30, so this is quite a few years later. And I started auditioning, and I got Haydn's Creation, double solo role. Big thing. A lot of music. It's about over an hour singing net, very complex music. I can never go further. Yes, I can sing that in a bigger place or something similar, but I can never go further in the thing itself. Got the freak out. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? I'm going to do an MBA. And I'd promised myself something when I turned 30, which is if some crazy idea comes into my mind, I'm going to do it, because you live once, and that's my present, my gift to myself. And I woke up in the morning, said I'm doing an MBA, and the next morning I woke up like I'm doing it in Oxford, and I had 0 chance of getting in. And I'm going to make another video about how that miracle came to be, because it was really a little bit like Legally Blonde. She did that one test and it got her in, and I kept telling my friends, like, that's kind of how it feels right now. And when I was in Oxford, I wanted to go hiking, and one of my friends said, oh, you should go to Scotland. And here we are. I kept coming here until one day I said, it just costs so much to just travel up. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to make it work here. And when I wanted to leave, I was gonna like, oh, it's too cold, I can't deal with this. Then I met my husband, and here we are. And this is how I missed one train in Israel and ended up living in Scotland with a family and doing something completely different than what I had planned for my life. And I think that if there's one thing that is inspiring to me, is just how much more I got out of life thanks to that missed train. So I'm going to send you all my love. Please do comment below on which of the two options you want me to make for the next video, because I want to give you something free from this book. And just before we go, I have the free recipe on my blog for you. Raw vegan fish sticks. My husband, who's not vegan, said they taste just like the original. The secret there is to blend what you usually get for that kind of raw vegan fish taste with a little bit of nori seaweed. Simple, healthy, raw vegan.